Our series begins with a young man named John, who is repairing a device when his sister Young interrupts him. He quickly puts the book in front of him, pretending to study, but she confronts him because she knows he's making fun of them and not studying. Their father intervenes as usual. We learn that he takes care of them and the house since their mother's death, working as a cleaner. At the same time, a young man named Ran wakes up and starts his daily routine. He's obsessed with cleanliness due to his germophobia, so he cleans everything multiple times before using it to ensure it's clean. Young goes to work, buys breakfast while walking, and accidentally bumps into Ran's car, leaving a mark on it. He's shocked, so she apologizes and hurries away. Later, we see him at a conference explaining how his cleaning company works and how new devices will soon be available that will clean everything so well that they won't need manual cleaners anymore. Young, meanwhile, is at her job cleaning the restaurant and overhears the conference. After it ends, Ran goes to a prearranged date with his mother's matchmaker, who looks very neat until he notices a dog hair. He quickly applies sanitizer and covers the food he's holding before she sneezes. At night, they sit together, and he complains about the strange day he had. So his mother enters and asks him what's wrong. He feels embarrassed, answers briefly, and leaves her. He explains to her what happened, and at that moment, his device, which he was working on, gets outside the house because his mother left the door open. So he goes to close it, but discovers that his device is missing. He and Kim start searching for it, and they find it downstairs because she's working as a delivery person at night to earn money and help her parents with expenses. She initially thinks someone threw it away and puts it in her bag. He arrives and thinks she's the customer who ordered food. He feels she's full of germs, so he sprays sanitizer on her. She sneezes and falls to the ground. He apologizes and leaves money for her on the floor, quickly walking away, surprising her with his behavior. She takes the money and calls the restaurant to report. Then, she goes to catch a ride but finds the fare expensive. She notices a guy on a motorcycle that seems ordinary and assumes he's a cheap taxi. She approaches him, and he's shocked because he's not a taxi driver at all. However, he agrees to take her when he learns she'll pay him $5. He drops her off in her neighborhood, and she pays him while walking. She feels someone is following her, and she finds him, thinking he's a thief, until her father comes to catch up with her, accidentally bumping into him and causing him to fall. They take him home, and her father tells her that the guy is their neighbor, Leon, who just returned from a trip and will be their neighbor for a while. She's not pleased with his return and doesn't welcome him. She enters her room. She finds out that the cleaning company accepted her, and she's thrilled. Later, Kim calls Ron and tells him that they're offering a reward for whoever has the device. He confirms he has it. At night, John enters his sister's room and finds the device, taking it happily, especially after seeing the reward advertisement. The next day, he calls Ran, disguises his voice, and tells him he has the device. They arrange to meet, and at night, Young's father feels unwell and can't go to work. So, she goes in his place to clean, and some guys hassle her and throw trash at her. She shouts at them, but notices one of them, Jack, who is her classmate and whom she admires. She tries to hide from him, but the guys chase her, with Jack among them. She accidentally bumps into Rand's car while he's meeting her brother for the device, causing the contents of her trash bin to fall on his car. He gets annoyed, sprays sanitizer, removes the box, hiding her face, and some bystanders record the incident. Young feels embarrassed and gives him her number to pay for damages. She takes the trash bin sadly and leaves. John witnesses what happened and decides not to answer calls, planning to take revenge. Rand goes home, retrieves some footage from street cameras, and discovers that Young took the device. He thinks she's trying to scam him. The next day she meets them, and he hands her some papers with car cleaning rights. She finds that the compensation she'll have to pay is too much for her. She gets out of the car, and he asks her where his device is, but she doesn't understand. So he shows her the video, and she retrieves the device from the street. She assures him not to worry and that she has it. He tells her to return the device to him, and he won't take her money for the car repair, and he'll even give her the reward. She asks, "Reward for what?" He replies that she won't find it funny and that someone called him, disguising their voice, and said they have the device, so surely that person will be her partner. Young realizes that it was her brother John who did this, She goes home and argues with him. Then her childhood friend Mina arrives, who becomes a mediator between them. Ron goes to talk to the manual cleaning department manager at his company and asks him not to hire Young. The manager refuses, saying they contacted her to give her a chance at least, as she impressed them during the interview. Ran agrees, but as the manager leaves, he recalls his bad memories with his grandfather and how he's the reason for the illness he suffered after Young. Jack sends Young a message asking for her help, which she gladly accepts. She meets him, and he asks her to do an advertisement for a restaurant that serves spicy food. She shoots the ad and eats the spicy food without stopping, even though it's very hot. After filming, she goes to the bathroom feeling exhausted. When she comes out, she overhears Jack talking to his friend, saying he's taking advantage of her feelings for him to help him at work. This upsets Young, and she goes to him, and he gives her a very small amount of money and a meal, which she refuses to accept and walks away feeling sad. She goes to meet Ran at the company to give him the device, but he, as usual, avoids touching her and sprays his sanitizer. As she walks away, she feels dizzy. He quickly lays something in his car and asks for help from a passerby there. She assists him and carries it, putting it in the car. He sprays sanitizer on it and takes it to the hospital. The nurse tells him that she's exhausted because she ate and that he needs to go pay the hospital bill. He goes, but wears a mask and gloves. He asks the receptionist for the patient's card, then goes to the room again, opens her bag, and takes it. He stays with her all day until her family contacts him. Ran gets up and leaves. The next day, when she wakes up, she finds Leon with her, taking care of her and feeding her. When she recovers, she goes to the company excited to start her job. She goes to her office and organizes it. Then she goes to Rand's office to thank him for helping her and taking her to the hospital. While washing his hands, he overhears her talking to her friend in the bathroom, expressing her desire to get closer to him despite her flaws, which he assumes means she likes him. He thinks their first meeting wasn't a coincidence and that she planned it all. As she leaves the bathroom, unaware that he overheard her, she says goodbye and leaves. The next day, at work, Rand sees the new disinfectant the company is producing. Suddenly, he sees her wiping the glass of the room. The glass allows him to see outside only when he presses a certain button, which she doesn't know. While cleaning, she draws a heart on the glass, which he sees when he presses the button, but she doesn't notice. He helps her and gets out. Then Ron comes out, telling her to be careful. He takes her with him, and Jian helps her. Ron tells her to be careful next time and leaves. They introduce themselves, and his friend Shin, who works in another department, joins them. After finishing her work, she goes home but notices a girl leaving Leon's house. She assumes she's Leon's girlfriend, especially since it's not the first girl she's seen leaving his house. He calls her, and she tells him to stay away from her. She accidentally drops her bag, revealing work-related items, which he notices, threatening to tell her father if she tells anyone. He accompanies her home because her father is alone for dinner. She's upset but keeps quiet and joins them for dinner. Meanwhile, Ron reminisces about memories with Young and wonders why he's thinking about her like this. The next day, she finds the janitors standing and annoyed about something. She asks why, and Shen tells her that one of them forgot food on the table, and it rotted, causing a bad smell. She decides to take action and cleanse the place, earning everyone's gratitude. The manager praises her for being consistent in her work every day, despite the bad smell, but she manages to handle it. He asks her how she can work in the cleaning department if she can't smell. She lies and says she can. He decides to test her. He continues to test her occasionally. Despite lying to them and being able to smell well, she manages to control herself. Once he puts a terrible smell on her clothes, and since she doesn't have other clothes, she's forced to wear them. All the employees are disgusted by her smell. However, she tries to keep herself together in front of them, pretending not to notice the odor. She goes out and finds that someone, probably Lee, is watching them. He is curious to know who is with her. He takes her to his place and gives her clothes. He takes her clothes and washes them at his place so her father won't find out. He stays to ask her questions. She thanks him for helping her. Meanwhile, Ryan finds his office dirty and repeatedly calls her to clean it. She talks to him while going downstairs to check on her brother, who's skipping classes and working. She falls to the ground, twisting her legs. He asks her if she's okay, forgetting that he's on the line with her. Ran worries about her and decides to go to her. Mai finds out that John is working, and they realize that if his sister finds out, she won't let him work. Once they encounter her in front of them, and Mai tries to keep her and Lee away from him. Lee carries her on his back because her legs are hurting. He takes them to Mai's place to have dinner together and let her calm down a bit. Meanwhile, Ron goes to her area, where everyone is tired, and he can't stand it. He keeps wiping his hands and sees her coming with them. She apologizes to him for closing the door on his face. He wanted her for overtime work, and she agrees and will go with him. But Lee stops her because of her legs, which annoys Ran. He tells her that since her legs hurt, she should rest instead of going out. He walks away with Cam and she goes home where her legs are treated and she feels upset. She complains to him about Ran. Meanwhile, Ran goes home and talks to his psychiatrist on the phone. The psychiatrist advises him to stay away from Young because she might develop feelings for him, worsening his condition. However, the next day, he goes to the company and brings her treatment for her legs. He finds a letter from the fence he sold to, thanking him for the thorough cleaning job done by the drainage company and inviting him to dinner. He asks the manual cleaning department manager about her and learns that she went with another employee to clean the company. He decides to accept the dinner invitation from Sal just to see her. At Young's place, she meets Jack there, who introduces her to Sal. Jack tells her that she has helped them with several ads before and could help them with their work this time. Sal agrees, but Young remains reluctant. Jack follows her and tries to persuade her. How does Young feel about this? She listens to their conversation. Young enters the car and refuses Jack's offer. She sits there, contemplating Jack's words. She becomes upset. Her colleague asks her to let Sal sign the paper confirming their thorough cleaning. She decides to go, but Jack stops her again, as he and Sal are there. Jack tells them that they have agreed on the job already. Ran notices that she's not agreeing. He holds her hand and informs them that he prohibits any employee from working elsewhere without telling him. He takes her and they leave. While going down the stairs, they stumble and she falls on him. He faints because of it. She takes him to the hospital crying. The colleague stays with her. When he wakes up, she apologizes to him, still crying. The colleague intervenes because he knows about his condition. Young feels guilty and tells them that she didn't know about his illness. He has to take her out of the room to calm her down. She goes home and decides to make soup for Ran, trying to take care of him because she feels guilty. Her brother helps her, and when she finishes, she goes to the hospital. Before entering, she hears her grandfather with him in the room, wanting to kick her out, but her brother stops him, knowing that she's not to blame for anything. Grandpa exits angrily, and she enters afterward, giving him the soup and telling him it's beneficial, urging him to leave the hospital quickly. She hands him the soup hastily and leaves. He decides to taste the soup and finds it very delicious, so he drinks it all. The next day, she goes to him and finds him with Sal, and they start working. She gives him the soup and leaves immediately. She waits for them outside. When they come out, she learns from them that an important project will be postponed due to his illness. She encourages them, insisting that they must present the project idea on time, and she'll help them. They agree, and she indeed helps them until they finalize the idea and everything. The day of the presentation arrives. They are at the reception when the waitress offers them juice and sweets. John eats from them, and suddenly he feels stomach pain and rushes to the restroom. The waitress calls them for the meeting, so he hurries to see John, but he finds the restroom under maintenance and can't find him. He's forced to enter with Young. The security stops him upon knowing he has a criminal record. Kim gets tense and tells the guard he's just a driver. He hands her the file and tells her to take over the mission, and she sneaks into the company. She attends the meeting, very tense and unable to speak fluently. However, with Ron's help, he presents the meeting on her behalf, assisting her. After they finish and head to the elevator, they find it not working, so they have to use the emergency stairs. As they descend, someone waits for Ran to throw dirty water on him, but Young intervenes and confronts him, getting wet herself. Ran covers her with his jacket because her clothes are wet. When they reach the bottom, Kim, who was supposed to put a cover in the car, finds Ran, but he stops him and drives off. This is the first time Ran has acted this way with someone. He drops her off at home, where she meets Leanne. The person sees her soaked and speaks harshly to Ron, saying she's his employee and shouldn't suffer like this. Ron reassures him not to worry about her because she's his maid, and he certainly doesn't want her to be embarrassed. Leanne takes her and leads her inside. Later, Ron goes to a women's clothing store and takes Kim with him to help choose a dress gift for Jan. After selecting it, he goes to her house to give it to her, but finds Leanne there. However, he doesn't pay attention to her. Both exchange challenging glances. Jan insists they leave to give her some rest. And indeed they do. She enters her room, sees the dress, and likes it. The next day, she goes to work, and John sees her and compliments her appearance. Especially the white color suits her. Then, Ron approaches her, and she hands him his jacket. Before he holds it, Kim sprays sanitizer on the bag. She thanks him for the dress and goes to continue her work. Later, Ran goes to the company's kitchen and finds the cup Young likes to drink from. He exchanges it with a new one of the same design. Young asks him what he's doing there, and he nervously says he was checking the cleanliness of the place. She takes her cup and is surprised to see it's new, but she drinks from it without much concern. Ron notices her discomfort and asks her if something is wrong. She tells him about a client who is disabled and moves around in a wheelchair. Before the accident, he was an athlete participating in tournaments. When she went to clean his place, he locked the door on her face. Ran reassures her that it's not her fault. After finishing her work, she goes to the cemetery to visit her mother's grave because today is her anniversary. Afterward, she sits on the swing near their house. He sees her and brings her strawberry ice cream. She accepts it and thanks him. The next day, she goes to work excitedly because she has a plan to convince the client to agree to have them clean his place. She informs him about it and he agrees. He tells her that Mr. Ron will be pleased with her efforts, especially since he initially didn't want to hire her. She smiles and tells him she likes Mr. Ron. Of course, Ran has just finished his work and leaves the office quickly before hearing more of her words. Because she had gotten close to the manager, Anne told him not to misunderstand her, as she loves him when he pays her salary. The manager laughs at her words. Meanwhile, Ren is in his office thinking about what she said. Once he takes out his cup, fills it with water and drinks. This is the first time he's drinking from a cup that belongs to her. At John's house, he dines with someone and feels sad because of the heavy burden his sister is carrying alone. May tells him that all he needs to focus on is passing the university entrance exam. If he gets accepted, their father and sister will be very happy, feeling that their efforts were not in vain. The next day, she wakes up her sister and takes care of her along with their father. They feed him well because he's going to the exam. She accompanies him to the exam venue and encourages him before he enters. John asks her for a hug, and before she can respond, he hugs her immediately. She feels a strange sensation. Young goes to the client and asks him to hear her plan. He lets her in but tells her not to come back again and shuts the door in her face. She goes to get the cleaning tools and starts cleaning, even going down to wipe the desk chair. He enters and of course they don't notice her. She overhears Kim saying that he likes Young because he always watches over her and never takes his eyes off her. However, he becomes flustered and tells him that he doesn't like her. He just watches her in case she makes any mistakes. Young then comes out from under the desk, upset by his words. She asks him if he really wants to fire her, and then Ren intervenes to ease the situation, indicating his presence. So she continues speaking and tells him that she is poor and loves money, and she works hard so he can have a lot of money to live a good life like them. But she does it her way, and leaves them feeling uncomfortable because he didn't mean what he said. The next day she decides to get back at him, finds him inside with Ren's suit that he'll wear to the meeting. So she takes it from him quickly and tells him she'll iron it for him. When she goes down, she meets him on her way, and he apologizes for what he said. She tells him that it's all over now. He leaves, changes his clothes, and goes to the meeting. When he takes out his handkerchief, he finds a bad smell instead, and gets embarrassed in front of the employees. Afterward, she goes to spray his clothes with a bad smell so he won't know how to change the suit. He knows she's the one doing this, and remains silent. Later, he's sitting and eating, and he finds the soup in front of him and she tells him that she's upset that Rand didn't respond to her. He understands that he's busy and invites her to eat with him, but she refuses, saying she doesn't eat that kind of food. She notices someone taking their picture, so she grabs the food box to cover her face. She runs after the photographer and Kim runs after her and stops her. Indeed, he goes and deletes all the photos. At night, she goes to the supermarket to get milk. When she goes to pay, she realizes she doesn't have enough money to complete the purchase. Ron is there and sees what happened, so he goes to buy the milk for her and puts it on her desk. At the same time, she manages to get the milk herself and returns to the company, deep in thought. She wonders if Ron is still there and decides to give him her milk. She goes to his desk and puts it there. When he returns to his desk, he finds the milk and thinks she refused to take it, assuming she's still upset. So he decides to go to her. Meanwhile, she also finds the milk on her desk and thinks similarly. They meet each other and talk at the same time, eventually understanding what happened. They smile at each other, then sit together and have a drink. Young also shares her food with him. After finishing, he returns to his desk and finds his laptop open to their project idea. He senses someone was there. The next day, she goes to the client again and tries to clean quickly, but he comes out of his room and tells her to leave. She gets the idea to let him help her clean, making him feel capable even though he's in a wheelchair. She knows he won't leave until she finishes cleaning, so he helps her, and they finally complete the task together. After finishing at the supermarket to get strawberry milk, her favorite, she finds a man standing with the same juice. The cashier tells him he can't take it, but Young assures her she'll return it too. However, the cashier insists that she doesn't have to return anything. The man gets upset and leaves his item and walks away. The cashier informs Young that the juice is a gift from the supermarket for her, making her very happy. At John's, he's out with his friends, having dinner, and he's there with them. She knows him as her big brother's friend. John gets upset by her words. When they leave, he asks her why she said that, as he never treated her like a sister. She tells him she sees him as her brother, and he confesses his love for her. She gets nervous and rushes to leave. A few days later, Young goes to the supermarket again to get juice, and the cashier tells her it's also free for her. Young realizes it's been a few days since she heard this and wants to know why. The cashier tells her it was a sweet gesture from her husband. Young doesn't understand, so the cashier tells her about Ren, who bought all the juice in the store for her, paid for it, and asked her to say so. She takes one and goes to give it to him. He takes it from her sadly, knowing their project was stolen. At night, she sits with Jan and Com, trying to find a solution to the problem. They then go to an office, where they learn that a competing company stole their project and undercut their price. The solution is to speak to the manager. They find him with Jack, who has a connection to the theft and gives the manager the credit card with the money. She enters, upset, and Jack tries to stop her. He apologizes and takes her away. Someone takes a picture of them together. When they leave, she asks him why he took it, and he says he now knows everything. His friend who used to work with him stole their project, but they had a falling out and he left. In the end, the manager helped them a lot, and they won't benefit from exposing him. She decides to invite him to dinner at her house, and her father welcomes him. Leanne is there too. They both continue to exchange strange glances. Meanwhile, at Kim's place, he's playing sports while watching the live of the auction. He follows all its news. At Young's house, when they finish eating, she gets up to wash the dishes. Leanne asks to speak to him privately, and he tells her that he's seeing a therapist who advised him to stay away from Young, because she's the only one he can touch and sit with normally, not because he loves her. He looks at Ren and leaves him, walking away. The next day, the manager asks Young to clean an apartment because the cleaning machine there is broken. She agrees and goes there. She finds the house already clean but knows it needs to be cleaned multiple times due to his illness. She starts cleaning anyway. At May's, she goes to sit for a while in the cafe and gets tense when she sees Dayon working there. She wants to leave, but he stops her, makes her sit, and goes to make her favorite latte with a heart on top. She's nervous about his actions even though she's also fond of him. She's worried that he's younger than her and wants to put an end to their relationship before it goes further. The next day, Leanne finds out that Young's father forgot his keys and doesn't know how to get into the house. He tells her he'll go get them from Young at work. Her father insists on going with him. Does Leanne know what to do? She doesn't want her father to find out. As soon as they leave, Leanne rushes to her and quickly changes into her uniform to cover up for work. Her father asks her what's going on, and they end up laughing at him, saying they're a couple. Unfortunately, Ren overhears them, gets upset, and leaves his office. After a while, he goes to the manager and gives him a file letting him know that Young went to clean someone's house and hasn't returned yet. Ren gets worried, especially when he finds out the client's house is close to the company. He calls her, and when she answers screaming, he rushes to his car and goes to the client's house. He hears her screaming and breaks the door open, only to be shocked to find her singing a song with the client. He's upset because he's been trying to reach her, and what she did is not acceptable. Moreover, he notices an injury on his hand, and she treats it with a bandage. Meanwhile, at the auction, she's reluctant to drink, and there's someone next to her trying to support her, but Kim intervenes, clearly showing their disagreement. The person who caused him trouble, stole his project idea, is named Hu Wang. Kim tells him to stay away from her and offers to take her home, but Hu Wang doesn't care. He tells him it's his right to take her home, and if he doesn't want to spend more days in jail, he should stay away from him. Kim gets angry and hits him, causing a fight. Afterwards, he contracts an illness. He takes her, and they walk together to his house. The next day, he wakes up and prepares breakfast for her, waking her up gently. She feels happy that he cares for her. At Young's place, she stands in front of the company, and he approaches her, giving her the food she forgot, and then walks away. She goes out and sits down to eat. He sees all this and gets out of his car, visibly upset. He tells her he warned her before not to bring any food to the company. She tells him she'll finish it before going inside. He goes in and leaves her, giving her some napkins. He lets her know she has a minute before work starts. Later, a decision is made to close the manual cleaning department to minimize the company's losses. Of course, he's upset because he won't see her the next day. He goes to her and tells her if she wants to transfer to another department, he's fine with it. She tells him that the decision affects everyone in her department, and she'll leave just like everyone else. Then she goes to collect her belongings. The manager informs her that someone wants to see her. The client she helped comes out and brings her a gift, thanking her for her assistance. He knows she's leaving and that the department will be closed, so he's upset for her. He's also upset, thinking about her, and decides to go to her. Before she enters her house, he stops her and hands her the cup she forgot, then suddenly hugs her. She moves away and tells him that his girlfriend might get upset if she sees them like this. He tells her she's not his girlfriend. They've only met a few times because of his mother. Besides, she also has a boyfriend. She understands what he means and tells him that Lee isn't her boyfriend either. It's all part of their plan to convince her father to let her work. Unfortunately, her father overhears everything she says. She asks Ren to hold her things and runs away, with her father chasing after her with a stick. At the company, Ren finds out who was behind the project theft. She turns out to be an employee there. The next day, Ren reveals her identity in the meeting, so she goes to his office and apologizes. He tells her to inform Huang to stay away, and she also needs to stop what she's doing or he'll fire her. She agrees and leaves. At Young's place, she decides to start over by working in the cafe again. Ren calls for another meeting. He receives a call from Mestmer informing him that their second project has been accepted. Everyone is overjoyed, and Jian tells them it's all thanks to Young. It turns out that the client, who is in a wheelchair, is the son of Mestmer. This prompts him to reconsider reopening the manual cleaning department since they'll be able to compensate for their company's losses. He decides to apologize to her. However, Lion stops him and tells him to stay away from her because she's no longer his assistant. He tells her that he's also her psychiatrist and won't interfere with what she does. At Saul's place, she sits with Ren's mother, who is worried about her son's illness. She asks her if they are engaged, and Saul tells her they're not because they don't feel anything for each other. However, there's another girl who he can touch without fear of germs. His mother is surprised and wants to know who this girl is. She finds out where Young works and goes there, asking for the girl. She shows her a picture of her son, and when Young sees it, she becomes nervous and initially wants to refuse. However, she agrees when she learns that the salary will be substantial. She laughs at her family's reaction to her new job. She prepares for her trip. Ren is happy with what his mother did and spends time choosing his outfit to meet her. When she arrives, they both smile nervously at each other. When she enters, he sterilizes her hands and hands her his slippers to wear. Then he explains the system he likes to walk on, and she writes down what he says, with him giving her his notebook. When he goes to the kitchen, he finds her cutting onions. He watches her, pretending to drink when she looks at him, accidentally touching her eyes with onion juice, causing them to burn. He tries to help her, and due to the pain in her eyes, she accidentally knocks over the plate of onions, creating a romantic scene as they continue to gaze at each other. Young shakes off the onions from herself, feeling flustered. Then Ren takes her out to pick up household items from the supermarket. He gets her a pair of slippers that fit her perfectly because his were too big for her feet. As they walk, they come across a pajama sale, so Ren decides to get them 2 sets. The next day, her father and Lion call to check on her and make sure she's okay. They learn that she's happy with her new job and decides to take a stroll in the city because she enjoys the nice weather. Later on, Lee finds out from the news report that the weather is terrible in the city where Young traveled. He realizes she lied to them. He goes looking for her but can't find her, so he decides to head to her location. He's upset that she lied to them. When he calls them, she understands his concern and explains that she hasn't told anyone in her family about working for him. They all sit down, and Lion tells him that he hasn't received treatment yet, and his condition might worsen. So he decides to stay with them until he's sure he's okay. Ren refuses, but Lion insists that they need to find out if he needs a psychiatrist now. After asking him a few questions, they realize he does need one. She convinces him to agree to treatment so he can improve. She knows he'll clean his room again after she does it. He agrees to a week of treatment to improve his condition. Ren starts training with Z, making him wash his hands a few times, but not as much as before. Young eats the food for the first time, and Ren graciously hands her the utensils first before taking some for himself. He wishes her bon appetit while holding his breath, as he always sterilizes the utensils first. But this time it's different because he wants her to stay with him. Afterwards, they find out that Saul is leaving and he gives her a gift. He asks her to have dinner together, and she agrees and goes with him. They see Huang sitting with them as an apology for the previous incident, but Ren refuses his presence and politely asks him to leave. Young doesn't say anything, which annoys Huang even more. Later, Ren receives a call that his grandmother is unwell, so he rushes to her side. Young offers to go with him, and when she does, she notices his care for his sick grandmother, which makes her admire him even more. At the company, her mother tells Ren that she sees him improving. She notices he doesn't need to dry anything anymore, but he lies and tells her that his psychiatrist said he needs to train with her. She asks him if he'll let her go after his training or if he'll keep her with him. He looks at her, unsure of how to respond. Back at his place, she stares at a picture of a cake, and he enters, asking her if she likes that type. She realizes it's the kind his mother used to make for her, and she hasn't had it since she passed away. He quickly goes to buy one for her, and she thanks him, reminiscing about her memories with her mother. She starts crying in her room, and he rushes to her without sterilizing himself like he always does, and he hugs her, asking her what's wrong. She tells him she misses her mother, and he tries to comfort her. Meanwhile, she's playing music, and John enters, greeting her warmly. He sits down too, and she tells him that if he thinks he's bothering her, he should stop. He tells her that he didn't mean to bother her, but he really loves her. She angrily tells him that she doesn't need a man to rely on and feel safe with like a child. She kicks him out of her house. When Ran sees them together, he walks away, leaving them, feeling sad because he senses that Young also loves Ran. Young feels tense being close to Ran and gets up, leaving him. However, he follows her and confesses his love to her. She goes to her room, feeling happy that he confessed because she also loves him. The next day, he sends a message to Ron that his training is over and he will soon be fine. Ron is happy and starts looking for information about relationships to help him with Young. Later, he prepares for a work trip and packs his bag. Maybe she can help. While at home, he watches Sal's live broadcast, where she confesses that she and Ran are just friends and she loves someone else, waiting for him to confess. He decides to go and confess to her, but when he arrives, the police arrest him. She waits for him, annoyed when he's late. We learn that the police arrested him because Huang filed a report of assault against him and took advantage of his previous criminal record. He calls Ran and tells him he can't travel with him and hangs up. So Young suggests she go with him instead, and of course he agrees. They actually travel together, talking and playing music. When they stop for a break, they eat together, and Young takes care of him, trying to help him manage his illness. After finishing his work, they realize they're late and can't travel, so they decide to stay in a hotel and leave in the morning. They go to their respective rooms. When he enters, he starts cleaning and sterilizing, but still feels uncomfortable. He calls housekeeping and asks them to change his room, but they refuse. Young comes and takes him to her room, which she has prepared for him, cleaned, and brought his usual bedsheet for him to sleep on. He is happy with her attention and suggests they watch a movie together. They sit together and watch a horror movie, and he sits next to her, feeling scared. She takes advantage of this and jokes with him, scaring him even more. The next day, they wake up and have breakfast together. Afterward, he gives her a t-shirt similar to his so they can match. She takes it and happily goes to put it on. They decide to go out for a walk before leaving. After they finish and return, Ran receives a call and learns that Kim is at the police station. So he goes to her house first. They find that she has changed the passcode to her house to her birthday. When they enter, they find her mother there, who asks them if they are in a relationship. They deny it, and she leaves them alone. Kim asks him not to tell anyone about their relationship yet. Her mother enters again because she forgot her bag and sees them close to each other. She realizes they are in a relationship and doesn't object. She is happy for them. Then he goes to meet Huang and asks him to withdraw the complaint, but Huang refuses and threatens Ran. When Kim's mother goes to Ron's house, her father shows her pictures of him with Young. She gets upset and tells her father to leave her son and his girlfriend alone and that she doesn't object to their relationship. She also tells him not to treat her son the way he treated her. But her father doesn't listen and goes to Ron's house, scolding him for loving Young because she is just a maid to him. Also, her family's status is not up to their standards. But Ron tells him that he doesn't care about all of that and that he loves her. So her grandfather leaves, upset with him, and Ran sits there, feeling sad. Then Young comes to comfort him, but he tells her he wants to be alone. He goes to his room and leaves her. She also goes to her room. She receives a message from her brother that their father is not feeling well. So she writes a note and sticks it to his room's door, then goes to her house and finds her father with a broken leg. She cleans the house and prepares food, letting her father rest in his room. She spends the day with him to take care of him. At the same time, Ron goes with the lawyer to meet Huang and try to convince him to drop the charges, but Huang refuses. The next day, Young meets her former manager at the company, who tells her about Ron and his grandfather. He explains that their relationship was not good, and that his grandfather was very strict with him, making him attend all his classes and take extra courses, not allowing him to rest. When she returns home, she finds Ren waiting for her with a bouquet of flowers, apologizing to her in his own way. She tells him that when he's sad or happy, he must share it with her so she can stand by his side. The next day, he allows her to return to the company and reinstates all the employees who worked in her department. Everyone is happy with this decision. After a while, Young goes to his office and begs him not to tell anyone about their relationship. He refuses at first, but he eventually agrees for her sake. The next day, Ran is released from custody, and he sees Young waiting for him. He remembers all their memories together, runs to her, hugs her, and she cries in his arms. He tells her that he never gave up on her and that he wanted to go to her, but the police arrested him. John goes to the company where she works, and when she sees him, she wants to return to her office. But he stops her and apologizes for his actions, asking for another chance. She agrees, and he hugs her, overjoyed. After a few days, he decides to take Young on their first date, and she is surprised to find him taking her to the gym, saying he will teach her self-defense. She agrees. Ren also takes Young to the amusement park, and they spend a wonderful time together. Young asks him to play a certain game to win her a teddy bear as a gift. He tells her he will go to the bathroom and come back. When he leaves, he sits down and washes his hands with water and sanitizer, feeling sad because he can't overcome his illness. At the gym, Kim trains her, and a girl takes a picture of them, revealing her admiration for Ran. The others at the gym start gossiping about her, so Kim removes her from them. After Ren finishes, he sits with her, and she notices his red hands, telling him not to rub them anymore. He apologizes because he can't continue the day. She tells him she had a great time with him. The next day at the company, Kim notices the whispers and looks from the employees. When he checks the internet, he understands why. He tries to calm down so he doesn't lose control and asks someone to find out who published the news. At the same time, Seoul's manager is yelling at her, demanding that she come out and deny everything. Kim arrives and hears the conversation, leaving sad without hearing her side. Sol tells her manager that she has made her decision and will not deny anything. She tries to call Kim, but his phone is off. Meanwhile, the head of the manual cleaning department goes to Ren's office and tells him they have a lot of work coming in, and he can't handle it all by himself. He asks for someone to help him. Ren agrees and asks who he recommends. The manager suggests Young, saying she is the most suitable for the job. Ren agrees because he knows she deserves it. He takes out his phone and sends her a message asking her to have lunch with him, but she replies that she's busy and will call him when she's free. He agrees. Young goes to her mother's grave and finds Lee there. She asks him how he knew her mother. Lee explains that when he was a child, he was bullied by the neighborhood kids, and her mother came to his aid and became his friend too. Young remembers and they walk together, reminiscing about their memories. Ren visits Jack and threatens him, telling him to stop spreading rumors or he will report him to his superiors. After leaving Jack, Ren goes home where Young finds the teddy bear she wanted from the amusement park. She is very happy and spends the day with him. At Kim's house, he distracts himself with exercises and ignores Saul's calls until she comes knocking on his door. She tells him she loves him and doesn't care about anyone's opinion about their relationship. He hears her but still doesn't open the door. The next day, the company announces that Young has been promoted. Everyone is happy for her except for the senior employees, who believe they deserve the position because they've been working there longer. John is preparing a surprise for me, but she tells him she's meeting her brother. He gets upset and says he will wait for her at the restaurant. She goes to him with Young. They are surprised by the musicians playing nearby and the bouquet of flowers. Young takes the bouquet, thinking it's a congratulatory gift for her promotion. Eventually, she realizes that all the preparations were for me and that John and me are in a relationship. She has no objections. The next day at work, Young notices that the employees don't listen to her. At night, she reads about how to gain their respect. Ren sees her and encourages her to make the employees listen to her. The next day, she implements a plan to win the employees over, and they start taking her seriously. After work, Ren drives her home. Before opening the car door, he wipes it with a tissue first. Lee sees this and realizes Ren is pretending to be cured. Lee later talks to a psychologist who tells him that pretending to be cured often means the condition is worsening. The next day during her break, Young overhears some girls talking about the girl Ren is dating. Feeling anxious, she starts to leave, but Ren arrives and announces that she is his girlfriend. Everyone congratulates them. In her neighborhood, Young's father is approached by a man who tells him that Mr. Joe wants to see him. Knowing who Mr. Joe is, he goes to meet him, only to be told to keep his daughter away from Joe's grandson. Mr. Joe even offers money to ensure this. Young's father gets angry and tells Mr. Joe that it's actually his grandson chasing after Young and he should control his own grandson. He then walks away. At home, Young is getting ready to go out when her father pretends to be sick to keep her home. She calls Ren to tell him she will be late because her father is ill. Later, she discovers her father was pretending and he demands she not see Ren again, indicating he knows about their relationship. Young explains she works at Ren's company. Her father insists she quit and find another job. Confused by her father's anger and rejection of Ren, she calls Ren to reassure him and asks him not to call her until she reaches out first. Meanwhile, Kim goes to the hospital to see his grandmother and finds Sol there caring for her. His grandmother grows fond of Sol and is happy that her grandson has someone special in his life. Young tries to sneak out despite her father's objections, but he catches her and makes her stay to watch a movie with him. The next morning, Ren comes over, and Young tries to send him away before her father sees him. However, when her father hears Ren's voice, Young quickly shuts the door on Ren, telling him no one is home. Ren speaks up, and her father realizes he's there. He takes Young and locks her in her room, then confronts Ren, demanding he stay away from his daughter and forget their relationship ever happened. Ren, confused and not understanding the reason behind her father's actions, is left stunned. Hearing the commotion, Leon arrives. After Ren leaves, Leon comforts Young. She mentions the accident that killed her mother and how the driver offered them money, which they refused. Leon finds it odd that the driver had such a large amount of money and suspects something is wrong. Meanwhile, Ren buys Young's favorite things and convinces Kim to try different facial masks to find the best one for her. Young bakes Ren's favorite cake with Mi's help. She calls her brother for assistance, and they lower the cake from the window to avoid her father. Kim arrives with John, bringing flowers and other gifts. Kim takes the cake, but when they try to bring everything into the house, her father catches them and confiscates the items. A few days later, Leon asks Young's father to let her go out with him. Though initially reluctant, her father agrees. Despite feeling sad, Young agrees to go out with Leon. They talk for a while and suddenly run into Ren. They run towards each other and embrace. That night, Leon investigates the accident and discovers that the driver has been in jail since then and has a son who received a large sum of money. Leon is puzzled about who else is investigating the accident. Young decides to meet Ren's mother, who agrees to meet her at a restaurant. Ren's mother promises to help convince Young's father to accept their relationship. Young feels relieved and asks Ren's mother why his grandfather is so strict with him. Ren's mother explains that while his grandfather was good to her, he was always critical of Ren. This constant criticism pushed Ren to strive for perfection to avoid his grandfather's disapproval. She blames herself and starts crying, but Young reassures her that it's not her fault. Ren's mother then gives Young a photo album filled with pictures of Ren from his childhood. At Mr. Joe's villa, the driver's son stands outside yelling incoherently. A guard approaches him, asking him to leave, but he keeps shouting, demanding that Mr. Joe release his father, who has been in jail for a long time. It becomes evident that the driver involved in Young's mother's accident has connections to Mr. Joe. Meanwhile, Leon visits Young's house while she is in the bathroom. He waits for her and notices the photo album, spotting a picture of the driver with Young's mother. He quickly takes the photo, as he had been struggling to find any images of the driver. John goes shopping for Mi's birthday present and finds a beautiful but expensive necklace. He goes home and tries to borrow money from his friends. Leon walks in and enjoys the coffee John made, offering to buy it from him. John agrees and rushes to purchase the necklace. That evening, Mi comes to the cafe to work. John, feeling bored and wanting to celebrate with her, tries to lighten the mood by pretending to call her boss, asking him to let her take a break. Mi, startled, grabs her phone from him, accidentally dropping it. She scolds him, saying she's working, not playing, and calls his actions childish, asking him to stop causing trouble. When Mi opens her phone, she realizes John hadn't sent anything. He promises to stop causing her problems and leaves, upset, throwing the necklace out the window. At home, Mi finds a video from John for her birthday. His heartfelt message reveals how much he loves her, making her cry as she regrets hurting him. John, meanwhile, searches for the necklace outside until he finally finds it. Elsewhere, Kim goes out with Seol. Seol enjoys changing Kim's style, so they go to the mall together to buy him new clothes. Afterward, Kim heads to the company because Ren needs him. There, they find Mi and John, who are also present. Ren wants their help in planning a surprise party where he will propose to Young. As they start planning, it's clear that John and Mi are at odds, bickering like cat and dog. Ren, annoyed, tells them he'll handle it himself. Mi goes to see Young and asks her to try on a dress she bought for her, confident it will look great on her. Meanwhile, Ren is busy reserving the venue for the surprise, and Hong notices them, clearly plotting something. Later, Leon meets the driver's son and learns that Mr. Joe was the one who hit Young's mother and framed the driver for it. The next day, Mai calls Young, saying she wants to take her to a nice place to wear the dress she gave her. Young agrees, unaware of the surprise. Everyone is busy preparing for the event, including Seol, who comes to help. That night, Mi takes Young to the party venue and leaves her to get some drinks. Suddenly, a little girl appears and gives Young a bouquet of flowers. Then Seol crowns her with a beautiful tiara, followed by Young's brother, who puts a veil on her. Everyone starts singing and dancing, and Young feels overjoyed. Ren then appears, approaches her, and tells her he wants to be with her forever. He gets down on one knee, takes out a ring, and proposes to her. Young agrees to marry Ren, but just as he starts putting the ring on her finger, the driver's son bursts in with Huang, revealing Mr. Joe's true identity. Young is shocked and asks Ren if his grandfather is responsible for her mother's death. Ren, confused, doesn't understand what's happening. Distressed, Young throws the bouquet and veil aside and leaves. Leon is waiting outside, and she asks him to take her away. John attacks Ren, and everyone tries to separate them. Mi tells Ren to ask his grandfather the truth. At home, Young is crying, and Leon tries to comfort her, telling her they are still investigating the incident and that Ren might not be involved in his grandfather's actions. Young, however, continues to cry while holding a picture of her mother. Ren confronts his grandfather, asking if he really did it, but his grandfather remains silent. Suddenly, the police arrive and Young's father goes to talk to her, trying to calm her down, and she assures him she will be okay. The next day, Ren goes to see Young, but she refuses to open the door. He tells her that it was his grandfather's mistake, not his, and that he knew nothing about it. He insists that all his feelings for her are real. Young responds that in the end, he is still his grandfather's grandson, and this issue will always stand between them, and she will never be able to forget it. Ren sits on the ground crying and begs her not to leave him. She also cries but doesn't respond. He goes home remembering their memories together, feeling sad. At work, Ren struggles, spraying sanitizer everywhere in his office. He tries to go home to rest but collapses. Meanwhile, at Young's home, her brother brings her food. They eat together and he tells her not to pressure herself to appear okay. She cries and he comforts her, assuring her that he is there for her. Later, Ren goes to Young's house to inform her of his condition, but her father confronts him, throws his gift away, and tells him not to come back. As Ren walks away, the driver's son and some guys attack him, but Leon sees them and intervenes, causing them to flee. Leon helps Ren and tends to his wounds. Young visits Ren's mother and finds Ren compulsively sanitizing everything. Seeing his deteriorated state, she cries for him. The next day, Ren goes to the company and finds that Young has sent her resignation via email. Leon visits him and advises him to follow his treatment plan, promising that he will arrange for Ren to meet Young. Ren agrees. Meanwhile, Sel visits Kim's house and he tries to hide the bruises on his face, but she notices them and worries. She applies ointment to his injuries. Young stands at the amusement park, reminiscing about her memories with Ren, when suddenly he calls out to her. She tells him that Leon said he wanted to talk urgently, so he should get to the point. Ren tells her to not quit her job, emphasizing how much she loves her work and is good at it, and not to let anything affect her dreams. She thanks him for his words and starts crying. Ren wipes her tears, saying he doesn't want to see her sad or crying because it makes him sad too. The next day, Ren goes to the company to gather his belongings and instructs Kim, Jian, Sean, and the manager to take over in his absence, as he has something important to do. Later, we see that Young has returned to the company and is helping them. Ren's condition worsens at home, worrying his mother. Leon tries to reassure her. Kim tells Sean about Ren's condition and Sean informs Young, giving her a report on his state. She becomes anxious, knowing Ren is acting like a machine, only sleeping 3 hours a night. At the care home, Young helps take care of Kim's grandmother while Kim sits with them. The doctor reassures them about her condition, but takes Kim aside to inform him that the care home will be sold by the end of the month, so he needs to make arrangements for his grandmother. Later, Young goes to Ren's house when she knows he's not there. She cleans the house, cooks for him, and leaves medical tape in the bathroom, knowing he scrubs his hands hard and injures them. She places her teddy bear on the couch as it used to be. At Mr. Joe's house, he asks his daughter about Ren's condition. She tells him that due to the high doses of medication, Ren isn't eating or sleeping well, and is currently in the hospital, where doctors plan to gradually reduce his medication. She begs her father to clarify the situation to Ren, but he refuses, saying it would ruin the reputation of both companies and their competitors would not spare them. Ren returns home, finding it clean, and realizes Young had been there. At night, he takes his medication, places her teddy bear beside him, and sleeps. When Young returns to the company, she learns that Mr. Joe is reviewing their work and is especially dissatisfied with her department. They also find out from Kim that the care home where his grandmother stays will be sold. John suggests that Young take on the task of finding a good place and setting up a care room. They visit the care home to study the situation. Kim shares Ren's idea with him, which he likes, but mentions that the board of directors isn't convinced. Ren tells him that winning the Best Project Award could change their minds, urging them to work hard for it. At the company, Young tries to find a solution and imagines Ren sitting in front of her, helping her. After a few days, Young presents her idea to the investors at the competition, and they like it. Suddenly, she spots Ren and excuses herself to see him. Recklessly, she almost crosses the street, but Ren catches her just in time, telling her he's been watching her and observing what she does in the meeting. Ren saw that she managed well, and that's what he wants, to see her happy and achieving her dreams. She tells him that just as he wants her to be happy, she also wants him to be happy, get treatment, and be well. As she starts to leave, she notices he's following her. He says he's heading in the same direction and continues walking behind her until she reaches her home. Ren spends 2 days at home, not going to the hospital. Lian visits him, bringing his medication, and notices Ren's hands covered in wounds. Ren tells him that he doesn't care about the medication because he knows his condition worsens due to being away from Young. He won't find peace until he gets justice for her mother. He's lost before, but this time he must win. Leon promises to help him find the truth and won't leave him. They meet the chauffeur's son, who claims he knows nothing and only heard about the incident from his father. He suspects his father is hiding something. They decide to visit his mother's address. The area is dirty, which affects Ren, but he presses on, asking for directions. By accident, a woman splashes water on him. Lian quickly helps him wipe it off, but Ren takes the tissue and thanks him. When they ask the woman about the address, she reveals she's the chauffeur's wife and invites them in for a drink. Ren feels unwell and steps outside, where Lian gives him medication. Feeling better, Ren wants to go back in, but Lian insists they return another time when Ren is in better health. Young anxiously awaits the results of the venture capital competition they entered this year. Initially, they think they didn't win, but they soon learn they won first place. They are overjoyed. The head of the manual cleaning department calls Mr. Joe to inform him of their victory, but Mr. Joe is indifferent, saying they shouldn't participate in such competitions next year as they are pointless. The manager explains that the recognition will greatly benefit them, keeping media attention on their company and increasing its reputation. It will also aid in their ongoing project. When Mr. Joe asks who is leading the project and hears Young's name, he hangs up. Young walks sadly, remembering and imagining Ren caring for her. She realizes she misses him deeply. Ren visits the chauffeur's wife again and finds her working. He offers to help and she questions why he's there, considering the area is unsuitable for the Joe family. Ren asks about the incident, but she tells him to leave, claiming she knows nothing. Ren follows her, revealing that her son constantly threatens Mr. Joe. The mother is upset by her son's actions and explains that her husband was indeed responsible for the accident, but Mr. Joe encouraged him to surrender to minimize the penalty. They needed money, and Mr. Joe supported them, but her son wasted it and now threatens Mr. Joe. She begins to cry, and Ren comforts her, asking for her help to reveal the truth. She agrees. Young celebrates with her friends at the company. She receives a video message from Ren, and after watching it, she rushes to find him, calling out while crying. When he appears, they run to each other and hug, but Ren suddenly collapses in her arms. At the hospital, she stays by his side, holding his hands. His mother and Lian arrive, asking about his condition. Young explains that he took an overdose of his medication. Lian asks why Ren was in that area, and Young explains that he was seeking the truth to get justice for her mother. That night, Ren wakes up to find Young beside him. He asks her to hold him, and she apologizes for blaming him when he was innocent. Ren wipes her tears and asks for another chance to take care of her again. She smiles at him and agrees. The next day, she decides to visit his grandfather and tells him that the doctor informed them that Ren's illness stems from childhood trauma, which was exacerbated by his strict upbringing. She urges the grandfather to mend their relationship for Ren's sake. He explains that he was strict for Ren's own good. She acknowledges that Ren has achieved great things and excelled in his studies as expected, but now it's time to find a solution for his current well-being. Young then visits Ren's house with a bouquet of flowers, explaining that they are from John and Sean and that everyone is waiting for him to get better. She places the flowers in a vase and asks him what he wants for his upcoming birthday. Ren tells her he doesn't like celebrating his birthday and that having her by his side is enough. At Mi's house, she's working while John is studying. When he goes to the bathroom, she notices something about a student exchange program on his laptop. When he returns, she asks if he's planning to go abroad. He says his teacher recommended him, but he plans to decline. She encourages him not to refuse, despite feeling sad that he would leave, because it's a great opportunity. She assures him that she, his sister, and father will support his decision. Later, we see Young and Ren standing outside his grandfather's house. Ren hesitates, recalling his childhood memories, but Young encourages him. Inside, they find his mother has prepared his favorite food. His grandfather joins them, and though Ren is nervous, Young stays by his side. His mother cries and apologizes for not being there for him, promising to make amends. His father goes to fetch his favorite noodles, asking Ren to help in the kitchen. His grandfather then asks when he plans to return to work, to which Ren responds soon. The grandfather expresses surprise at how well the company has done in Ren's absence and encourages him, noting that the employees have proven themselves. Ren's grandfather then takes him to his office, showing him a box of gifts he had bought over the years, but never gave to Ren, saying the gifts were cluttering up the house. Ren is delighted to see that his grandfather thought of him all those years. They sit together and eat, Ren feeling truly cared for the first time, and he is happy. Young then visits Mr. Joe, who apologizes for initially rejecting her, acknowledging that she proved herself and stood by his grandson. She says she understands he did it for Ren's benefit. Meanwhile, Mi helps John prepare for his student exchange interview, practicing questions with him. When she asks if he would stay abroad if he liked it there, he reassures her that he would return for her, unable to leave her behind. Next, we see Saul taking Kim to an archery club party. Kim asks if there are journalists inside, to which Sol responds that she doesn't care about anyone else, just him. Inside, she publicly confesses her love for him. Ren takes Young to her house to reconcile with her father, where they find Mr. Joe apologizing for his past remarks. After Mr. Joe leaves, they go inside and sit with Young's brother and father. Ren asks for their permission to be with Young, and they give their blessing, advising him to take good care of her. Her father is emotional, happy that his daughter found true love. They spend the day together, and as evening falls, Young and Ren sit down for a meal with her family. Young's father insists that she should also get married and suggests that Leon would be a good match, which annoys John. John confesses his love for Young, making his feelings clear. After dinner, Young takes Ren aside, asking him to close his eyes and count to 4. When he opens them, he finds the place decorated with the gifts he had given her and a cake. She tells him to make a wish, and he's touched by her thoughtfulness. The next day, Ren returns to work and is approached by a colleague who wishes to resign. Ren asks if something is bothering him, but the colleague explains that he has learned a lot and now wants to start his own business. Ren supports his decision, but asks him to stay and complete the retirement home project first. That night, Ren meets Leon to thank him for his support and asks him to look after Young. The next morning, Young visits Leon, learning that he is returning to America, but leaves his door open for her. She thanks him for everything he has done and wishes him happiness. The following day, Ren asks Young to meet him at a specific location for work. When she arrives, she sees a hot air balloon and thinks she needs to clean it. A man dressed similarly to her approaches, and they work together. Suddenly, the balloon takes off and she realizes the man is Ren. They watch the view from above, and Ren pulls out a ring, kneeling and proposing to her again. She joyfully accepts, and they embrace, ready to start their new life together. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and check out our other selection of recaps. Take care.